My identical twin died 8 years ago. She just showed up at my wedding with our parents acting like nothing happened. I saw her through the bridal suite window at 11:42 a.m., exactly 18 minutes before I was supposed to walk down the aisle. She was standing next to my parents in the garden below, wearing a dress identical to the one my mother had on. Her hair styled exactly like mine used to be before I cut it short 3 years ago. My sister. My identical twin. The one I'd buried 8 years ago after she drove her car into a lake at 23 years old. The glass of champagne slipped from my hand and shattered on the hardwood floor. My maid of honor, Jasmine, rushed over with a towel, asking if I was okay, if I'd cut myself. I couldn't answer, couldn't move, couldn't process what my eyes were showing me. Vanessa was dead. I'd identified her body. I'd given the eulogy at her funeral. I'd watched them lower her casket into the ground. I'd visited her grave every year on the anniversary. She was dead. But she was standing in my wedding venue garden, laughing at something my father said, looking exactly like she had the last time I saw her alive. Same smile, same mannerisms, same presence that had always made people do double takes when they saw us together. Jasmine followed my gaze out the window. She didn't know what she was looking at, had never met Vanessa, only knew I'd had a twin who died before we became friends. She asked who I was staring at so intensely. I told her it was nothing, just pre-wedding nerves making me see things. But my voice came out wrong, hollow and distant like someone else was speaking through my mouth. I made an excuse about needing air and practically ran out of the bridal suite, taking the back stairs 2 at a time, my wedding dress bunching around my legs as I descended. The garden was through the main hall, past where guests were already being seated for the ceremony. I couldn't go that way in my dress without causing a scene. Instead, I went out the service entrance, circling around the building through the catering area where kitchen staff gave me strange looks. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. This wasn't possible. Dead people didn't show up at weddings. Dead people didn't exist in gardens wearing coordinated outfits with living parents. I was having a breakdown. Wedding stress had finally cracked something in my brain. That was the only explanation that made sense. I reached the garden entrance and stopped behind a trellis covered in white roses, watching. My parents were there, both of them, dressed for the ceremony. My mother in her pale blue dress, my father in his gray suit. And between them was a woman who looked exactly like me, or rather, exactly like I used to look before I changed my hair, before I lost weight from stress. Before 8 years of grief carved lines into my face that weren't there before. The woman laughed at something my father said, touching his arm with easy familiarity. She moved like Vanessa, talked like Vanessa, even had the same habit of tucking hair behind her left ear that we'd both inherited from our mother. My mother leaned in and kissed the woman's cheek, saying something I couldn't hear from this distance. The woman smiled and nodded. Then all 3 of them started walking toward the main building, toward the ceremony space where I was supposed to be marrying Derek in 16 minutes. I stepped out from behind the trellis. "Mom!" I called out. My voice cracked. All 3 of them stopped and turned. My mother's face lit up with a smile that immediately felt wrong. Too bright, too performative. "Sweetheart, you shouldn't be out here. It's bad luck to be seen before the ceremony. You need to get back inside." The woman standing between my parents met my eyes. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Something that looked like recognition and fear, and something else I couldn't name. Then she smiled. The exact smile Vanessa used to give me when we were in on a secret together, and my entire world tilted sideways. "Chloe," the woman said, my name in Vanessa's voice. "You look beautiful. I'm so happy for you." I couldn't breathe. My vision was narrowing to a tunnel. This woman knew my name, used my sister's voice, stood next to my parents like she belonged there. My father stepped forward, his expression concerned but also careful, controlled. He put a hand on my shoulder. "Honey, you're shaking. Are you feeling all right? Should we get you some water?" I looked at him, at his face that I'd known my entire life, and realized I didn't recognize the person behind it. "Who is that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Who is standing next to Mom?" My father's hand tightened on my shoulder. His face did something complicated, a series of micro-expressions that passed too quickly to fully process. "That's your sister," he said carefully. "You know that. Vanessa is dead," I said. The words felt like stones in my mouth. I buried her 8 years ago. We all did. My mother's face went pale. She glanced at my father, then at the woman, then back to me. Her mouth opened and closed twice before she managed to speak. "Chloe, sweetheart, I think you're confused. The stress of the day, it's a lot. Maybe we should postpone the ceremony, get you checked out by a doctor." The woman, Vanessa, whoever she was, took a step toward me. Her eyes were the same amber-green color as mine, as Vanessa's had been. She had the same small scar on her left eyebrow from when we were 7, and I'd accidentally hit her with a swing. Every detail was right. Every detail was impossible. I backed away from all of them, my wedding dress dragging through the grass. "You died," I said to the woman. "You drove into Miller Lake. They found your car 3 days later. You were still in the driver's seat. I identified your body. I watched them close your casket because your face was too damaged from the water and the impact for an open viewing. How are you standing here?" The garden went silent. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. The woman's smile faded. replaced by something that looked like genuine pain. "Chloe," she said softly, "I know this is confusing. I know you're upset, but I'm here now. That's what matters, isn't it?" "No," I said. My voice was getting louder, spiraling toward hysteria. "No, that's not what matters. What matters is that you're dead. What matters is that I grieved for you. What matters is that 8 years ago, at your funeral, I stood up in front of 300 people and talked about how much I loved you, how much I'd miss you, how I'd never be whole again without my other half. And now you're standing in my wedding garden like nothing happened." Guests were starting to appear at the garden entrance, drawn by the commotion. I could see Derek's groomsmen, could see Jasmine rushing toward us with concern written across her face. My perfect wedding was collapsing in real time, but I couldn't stop, couldn't pretend I wasn't seeing what I was seeing. My father stepped between me and the woman. His face had gone hard, authoritative in the way it used to when Vanessa and I were children and had pushed too far. "Chloe, that's enough. You're making a scene. We're going to go inside, and you're going to calm down, and then we're going to have a conversation about this like adults. But right now, 200 people are waiting for you to get married, and you need to decide if you're going to do that or if you're going to ruin this day for everyone." The threat in his voice was clear. Fall in line or face consequences. It was the same tone he'd used our entire childhood, the same manipulation tactic that had kept Vanessa and me compliant for years. But I wasn't a child anymore. I wasn't the person who'd learned to swallow her questions and doubts to keep peace in the family. 8 years of therapy after Vanessa's death had taught me to recognize gaslighting when I heard it. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and opened my photos. I scrolled back, past wedding planning pictures, past vacation photos, all the way to 8 years ago. I found what I was looking for: the funeral program, the death certificate I'd photographed for estate purposes, the obituary that had run in 3 newspapers. I held the phone up so all 3 of them could see. Vanessa Claire Odom, born March 15th, 1992, died June 8th, 2016, beloved daughter and sister. I read the words aloud, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. "This is real. This happened. You can't gaslight me into believing it didn't." My mother made a sound like a wounded animal. She turned to my father, her face crumbling. "Michael," she said, "we can't do this anymore. We can't keep doing this to her." My father's jaw clenched. He looked at my mother with something that might have been anger or might have been fear. "Janet, not now. Not here." "Yes, now," my mother said. Her voice was rising, breaking. "Look at her. Look at what we've done to her. She thinks her sister is dead. She's been living with that for 8 years because of what we did, what you made us do." The woman, Vanessa, was backing away, her face pale. She looked at me with tears streaming down her cheeks. "Chloe, I'm sorry. I never wanted this. I never wanted you to think I was dead. They said it was the only way. They said you'd understand eventually." "Understand what?" I demanded. "Understand why you faked your death? Understand why our parents let me believe you drowned? Understand why I've spent 8 years in therapy trying to process losing my twin?" Jasmine reached me and grabbed my arm, her face full of confusion. "Chloe, what's happening? Who is that woman? Why does she look exactly like you?" Before I could answer, Derek appeared. My fiancé, the man I was supposed to marry in less than 10 minutes, took in the scene with growing alarm. His eyes moved from me to the woman who looked like me, back and forth like he was watching a tennis match. His face went white. "Jesus Christ," he breathed. "You have a twin, an alive twin. You told me she was dead." The wedding coordinator was there now, asking if we were ready to start, if there was a problem, if someone needed to make an announcement to the guests. The garden was filling with people, all of them staring at me and at Vanessa, at the impossible duplicate that shouldn't exist. My father held up his hands, trying to regain control. "Everyone, please. This is a family matter. We need privacy to discuss this. The ceremony will begin shortly. Please return to your seats." But nobody moved. The moment had gone past the point where authority could redirect it. Derek was still staring at Vanessa, then at me, his face cycling through confusion, shock, and something that looked like betrayal. "You lied to me," he said quietly. "For 3 years we've been together, and you lied about something this fundamental." "I didn't lie," I said. My voice was breaking. "I thought she was dead. I showed you her grave. I took you to the cemetery on the anniversary. I cried on your shoulder about losing her. How could I lie about something I believed was true?" "Then how is she standing here?" Derek asked. "How is your dead twin sister alive at our wedding?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out," I said. I turned back to my parents, to Vanessa. "Someone needs to tell me what happened. Right now. The truth. All of it." My mother looked at my father, some silent communication passing between them. Then she looked at me, and for the first time in 8 years I saw guilt on her face. Real, crushing guilt that made her look 10 years older. She sat down heavily on a nearby bench, her carefully applied makeup already smudging from tears. "Your sister didn't die," my mother said. Her voice was flat, defeated. "She left. We helped her leave. We staged the accident, filed the death certificate, held the funeral. We did all of it to protect her." "From what?" I asked. "What could possibly require faking her death and letting me believe she was gone?" My father cut in, his voice sharp. From a man who would have killed her if we hadn't gotten her out. From a situation that would have destroyed our entire family if the truth had come out. From consequences that would have put all of us in danger. You don't get to decide what's worth destroying me over, I said. The anger was rising now, hot and clarifying. You don't get to choose my grief as the acceptable sacrifice to protect whatever secret you're keeping. Vanessa stepped forward, her face streaked with tears and mascara. It was me, she said. I'm the one who made the choice. I'm the one who decided to disappear. And I'm the one who asked them not to tell you because I knew you'd try to find me. And that would have put you in danger too. I stared at my twin. At the person I'd shared a womb with. The person I'd been inseparable from for 23 years. What did you do? I asked. What could possibly be so bad that you'd put me through 8 years of mourning rather than trust me with the truth? Vanessa looked at our parents, then back at me. She took a deep breath. I witnessed a murder, she said. Not just any murder. I saw 3 men kill someone, and one of those men was a federal judge. I recorded it on my phone because I didn't understand what I was seeing at first. By the time I realized, it was too late. They saw me. They knew I had evidence. Her voice was shaking now, words tumbling out faster. I went to the police, but one of the officers I talked to was connected to the judge. Within hours, I had people following me. They broke into my apartment. They called me and described what you were wearing that day, where you'd gone, who you'd talked to. They made it clear they could get to you, to Mom and Dad, to anyone I cared about. So I went to the FBI. They confirmed the corruption went higher than I'd thought. And they offered me witness protection, but only if I disappeared completely. Vanessa and I had always been close in ways that went beyond normal sibling relationships. Identical twins often are. We'd had our own language as children, could finish each other's sentences, knew what the other was feeling without asking. When she disappeared, when I thought she'd died, part of me had died too. The grief had been physical, a wound that never fully healed. And now she was telling me it had all been a lie. A necessary lie, maybe, but still a lie. Why now? I asked. Why show up at my wedding after 8 years? Why not stay disappeared? My father answered this time. Because the judge died 3 months ago. Natural causes. Heart attack in his sleep. The other 2 men involved were arrested last month on unrelated charges. They're both going to prison for life. The threat is gone. Vanessa is safe to come home. And you thought my wedding was the appropriate venue for this reunion? My voice was rising again. You thought I'd just see her, accept it, and walk down the aisle like nothing happened? My mother stood up, reaching for me. Chloe, we wanted you to have your family back. We wanted you to be complete again for this important day. We thought you'd be happy. Happy, I repeated. The word felt absurd in my mouth. You thought I'd be happy to discover my entire grief was based on a lie. That I'd be happy to learn my family conspired to deceive me for 8 years. That I'd be happy to have my wedding hijacked by a resurrection. The crowd of onlookers had grown. Guests were openly filming now, phones raised, capturing every moment of the breakdown. I could see Derek's mother near the back, her face scandalized. Could see my boss from work, the colleagues I'd invited, all of them witnessing the unraveling of my carefully constructed life. Derek touched my arm. Chloe, maybe we should go inside. Talk about this privately. We can postpone the ceremony, figure this out. I pulled away from him. Figure what out? I asked. How to proceed with a wedding when I just discovered my entire family is capable of maintaining an elaborate lie for nearly a decade. When I learned that the grief I've been processing in therapy twice a week for 8 years was manufactured, Derek's face hardened slightly. I understand you're upset, but this isn't just about you anymore. We have 200 guests here. We have vendors who've been paid. We have a marriage license that expires next week. We need to make a decision. The practicality of his response, the focus on logistics instead of the emotional devastation I was experiencing, clarified something I'd been trying to ignore for months. Derek and I weren't right for each other. We'd been together 3 years, gotten engaged because it seemed like the logical next step, planned a wedding because that's what people did. But I'd never told him the full truth about Vanessa, about the complicated relationship we'd had, about the guilt I carried from the last conversation we'd had before she disappeared. I'd kept parts of myself hidden, and he'd never asked to see them. You're right, I said. This isn't just about me, but it's also not about the 200 guests or the vendors or the marriage license. It's about whether I can marry someone who's more concerned with appearances than with what I'm going through right now. Derek's face went red. You're calling off the wedding. Yes, I said. I'm calling off the wedding. The garden erupted in murmurs. My mother gasped. My father started to say something, but I cut him off. No, I said firmly. You don't get to weigh in on this. You lost that right when you decided to fake my sister's death. I turned to Vanessa. I need to know everything. Every detail. Every choice that was made. Every moment you've been alive while I thought you were dead. But not here. Not now. Not in front of all these people. Vanessa nodded, tears still streaming. Okay, whatever you need. I looked at Jasmine, my maid of honor who was watching all of this with wide eyes. Can you handle the guests? Tell them there's no wedding. Tell them anything you want. Just get them to leave. Jasmine nodded, still looking shell-shocked. Yeah, I can do that. What about you? Where will you go? I don't know yet, I said. But I can't be here. Derek grabbed my arm as I started to walk away. Where are you going? We need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about, I said. I'm done. With this wedding. With these lies. With all of it. I yanked my arm free and headed back toward the main building, my wedding dress dragging through the grass, ruined with dirt and grass stains. Behind me, I could hear my mother crying, my father trying to manage the crowd, Derek calling my name. But I didn't stop. I made it back to the bridal suite, locked the door, and called the only person I knew would answer without judgment. My therapist, Dr. Rivera, picked up on the third ring despite it being a weekend. I told her everything in a rush of words that barely made sense. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Chloe, she said carefully, what you're experiencing is a severe trauma response. Your reality has been fundamentally challenged. You need support right now. Do you have somewhere safe you can go? I thought about it. Not my parents' house, not Derek's apartment, not anywhere my family or fiance could find me. My mind landed on my college roommate, Kira, who lived 2 hours away. We'd stayed close over the years. She knew about Vanessa, had helped me through the worst of the grief in the immediate aftermath. I told Dr. Rivera I'd go to Kira's. She made me promise to check in with her in a few hours, to not make any major decisions while in crisis, to remember that what I was feeling was valid and normal given the circumstances. I changed out of my wedding dress, leaving it in a heap on the floor, put on jeans and a t-shirt, grabbed my purse and car keys. When I opened the door to leave, Vanessa was standing in the hallway. We stared at each other for a long moment, identical faces showing different versions of devastation. I tried to move past her, but she stepped into my path. Please, she said. Please just let me explain. You had 8 years to explain, I said. 8 years where you could have sent me a letter, made a phone call, found some way to let me know you were alive. You chose not to. That tells me everything I need to know about how much my suffering mattered to you. That's not fair, Vanessa said. Her voice broke. I was in witness protection. I couldn't contact anyone. It wasn't a choice. It was the condition of staying alive. You could have told me before you left, I said. You could have said goodbye. You could have let me know you were going into hiding instead of letting me think you'd killed yourself. We could have had one last conversation, one last moment together. Instead, you let me find out you were dead from a police officer showing up at my door at 3 a.m. Vanessa's face crumbled. I wanted to tell you. I tried. But the FBI said any contact would put you in danger. The people looking for me were monitoring everyone in my life. If I'd reached out, they would have known I was alive. They would have used you to get to me. So you made the choice to save yourself and destroy me instead. That's not what happened, Vanessa said desperately. I was trying to save both of us. If I'd told you, you would have tried to help me. You would have put yourself in danger. I knew you, Chloe. I knew you'd do something stupid and noble and it would get you killed. So yes, I let you think I was dead because keeping you alive and safe was more important than keeping you happy. The logic was sound. I understood it intellectually. But emotionally, it felt like another betrayal. Another instance of someone deciding what was best for me without consulting me, without trusting me to make my own choices. You didn't get to make that call, I said. You didn't get to decide that 8 years of grief was an acceptable price for my safety. That's my trauma to carry now. And you put it on me without asking. I know, Vanessa whispered. I know, and I'm sorry. I've been sorry every day for 8 years. But I didn't know what else to do. I was 23 and terrified, and the FBI agents were telling me this was the only way. I made the best choice I could with the information I had. I believed her. That was the worst part. I could see in her face that she'd suffered too, that the choice hadn't been easy, that she'd carried her own guilt all these years. But that didn't erase my pain. Didn't make the last 8 years any less real or devastating. Didn't change the fact that I'd built my entire adult life around the absence of my twin, shaped myself into someone who existed without her other half. I need time, I said. I need space to process this. I can't just flip a switch and have you back in my life like nothing happened. How much time? Vanessa asked. I don't know. Months maybe. Maybe longer. But right now, I need you to let me leave. I need you to not follow me. I need you to give me the space to grieve the person I thought I lost and to figure out how to relate to the person you actually are. Vanessa stepped aside, tears streaming down her face. Okay, whatever you need. I started to walk past her, then stopped. One more thing, I said. The last time we talked before you disappeared, we fought. Do you remember what about? Vanessa nodded slowly. You wanted to borrow my car because yours was in the shop. I said no because I needed it for an errand. You got angry, said I was being selfish. We didn't speak for 3 days. Then I disappeared. I've carried that for 8 years, I said. The guilt of our last interaction being a stupid fight about a car. The weight of never getting to apologize or hear you apologize. The knowledge that if I'd known it was the last time I'd see you, I would have said I love you instead of slamming the door. Vanessa reached for me, but I stepped back. Don't. I'm not ready for that yet. I just need you to know that you didn't just take yourself away from me. You took all the closure, all the resolution we could have had. You took my chance to say goodbye properly. And I don't know if I can forgive that. I walked away before she could respond, made it to my car, and drove out of the parking lot while my phone exploded with calls and texts. I didn't answer any of them. I drove to Kira's apartment in silence, my mind numb and static-filled. She opened the door in her pajamas, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside without asking questions. I collapsed on her couch and cried for 3 hours straight. Kira sat with me, not trying to fix anything, just being present. When I finally stopped crying and told her what happened, she was quiet for a long moment. "Holy shit," she said finally. "That's the most insane thing I've ever heard." "Yeah," I said. My voice was hoarse from crying. "Yeah, it really is." Kira made me tea and ordered takeout and set me up in her guest room. I spent the next 3 days there, refusing to answer calls from my family or Derek. I did check in with Dr. Rivera as promised, had a long session over video call where we processed the initial shock. She helped me understand that my feelings of betrayal were valid, that the grief I'd experienced was real even if the death wasn't, that I'd need time to reconcile the sister I'd lost with the sister who was alive. On the 4th day, my mother showed up at Kira's apartment. I don't know how she found me, but she was persistent. Kira asked if I wanted her to leave. I thought about it, then said no. Let her in. My mother looked terrible. She'd aged years in just days, her face drawn and pale. She sat across from me in Kira's living room, hands twisted in her lap. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know that's not enough. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I need you to understand why we did it." I waited, not speaking. She took a shaky breath. "When Vanessa came to us, when she told us what she'd witnessed and what the FBI was proposing, your father and I made a choice. We could tell you the truth and put you in danger, or we could protect you by keeping you in the dark. We chose your safety. But in doing so, we destroyed your trust. We made you live through grief that we knew was false. And we did it knowing that if you ever found out, you might never forgive us. Was it worth it?" I asked. "Was my safety worth what it's cost?" My mother's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know. I thought so at the time. Now I'm not sure. Maybe we should have trusted you with the truth. Maybe we should have let you make your own choice about the risk. But we were parents trying to protect both our daughters, and we made the best decision we could." "I understand that you were in an impossible situation," I said, "but you need to understand that you didn't protect me. You just gave me a different kind of trauma. The grief might have been based on a false premise, but it was still real. I still suffered. I still broke. And I did it alone, because you took away my right to know the truth." My mother nodded, crying openly now. "You're right. We did. And I will regret that for the rest of my life." "What happens now?" I asked. "Where does our relationship go from here?" My mother looked at me with desperate hope. "Can there be a relationship? Or have we destroyed that completely?" "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "Right now I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm confused. I can't just pretend this didn't happen and go back to Sunday dinners and holiday gatherings like we're a normal family. We're not normal. We've never been normal. And I need time to decide if I can build something with you knowing what you're capable of keeping from me." My mother stood, clutching her purse. "Take all the time you need, but please know that I love you, that I've always loved you, that every decision we made, right or wrong, came from a place of wanting to protect our daughters. I'll believe that when I'm ready to," I said. "Right now, I need you to leave." After my mother left, Kira sat down next to me. She handed me another cup of tea. "That must have been hard," she said. "It was, but necessary." We sat in silence for a while. Then Kira asked the question I'd been avoiding. "What are you going to do about Derek?" I thought about the man I'd almost married, about the relationship we'd built, about the future we'd planned. "I'm not going back to him," I said. "Not because of what happened at the wedding. That just made me see what was already true. We weren't right for each other. I'd been settling." Kira nodded. "I always thought so, but I didn't want to say anything." "Really?" I asked. "You knew?" She shrugged. "You were never yourself around him. You edited yourself, made yourself smaller and more manageable. It was like watching you perform the role of girlfriend instead of actually being one. I'd been doing that my entire life, performing, pretending, molding myself into whatever version of Chloe people needed me to be. After Vanessa disappeared, I'd become even more compliant, more eager to please, as if being good enough could prevent another loss. Derek had fit into that pattern perfectly. He'd wanted a wife who wouldn't challenge him, who'd organize his life and look good at work events. I'd wanted someone who'd give me structure and stability after years of grief-induced chaos. We'd been using each other without realizing it. Over the next week, I started dismantling my old life. I called Derek and told him it was over, that I'd move my things out of his apartment as soon as possible. He tried to argue, said I was making a rash decision based on trauma, that we could work through this if I'd just come home. But his arguments were about logistics and saving face, not about love or understanding. I ended the call feeling relieved. I called my landlord about breaking my lease, explained I needed to move, that I'd pay whatever fees were necessary. I called my boss and took a leave of absence from work, citing personal emergency. I needed time to rebuild myself without the pressure of maintaining my previous life. Vanessa tried to contact me multiple times. Text messages that I read but didn't answer. Voicemails I listened to but didn't return. She asked to meet, said she had things to explain, begged for a chance to fix what was broken. I wasn't ready yet. Needed more time to process. 2 weeks after the wedding that never happened, I received a package at Kira's apartment. Inside was a journal, worn and water-stained, with Vanessa's handwriting on every page. A note on top read, "I kept this during the first year of witness protection. I wrote to you every day, even though I couldn't send the letters. I thought you should have it now." I opened the journal to the first page. It was dated the day after her supposed death. The entry began, "Dear Chloe, today was the day of my funeral. I watched from a distance, through binoculars, from a FBI safe house 3 miles from the cemetery. I saw you standing at the grave, saw you collapse when they lowered the casket. I wanted to run to you, wanted to tell you it was all fake, that I was alive. But the agents held me back, told me it would endanger both of us. I've never hated myself more than I did in that moment." I read through the journal over the next several days, 8 months of daily entries, all addressed to me. Vanessa wrote about her life in witness protection, about the isolation and fear, about missing me so profoundly it became physical pain. She wrote about watching me from a distance through carefully monitored social media accounts, seeing me graduate from college, get my first job, start dating Derek. She wrote about wanting to reach out when she saw me posting about therapy, about grief, about struggling. She wrote about the guilt that consumed her, about the choice that had saved her life, but destroyed mine. The final entry, dated 8 months after she'd gone into witness protection, said, "I can't keep doing this. No, can't keep writing to someone who will never read these words. The FBI moved me to a new location today, somewhere even more isolated. They say it's safer, but I feel like I'm disappearing, not just from you, but from myself. I'm losing who I was, becoming someone else entirely. This will be my last entry. I love you, Chloe. I've loved you since before we were born, and I will carry this grief for what I've done to you until the day I die. I hope someday you can forgive me, but if you can't, I'll understand. Some betrayals are too deep to heal." I sat with the journal for a long time after finishing it, processing this new information. Vanessa hadn't moved on happily in witness protection. She'd suffered too. Different suffering than mine, but real, nonetheless. It didn't erase my pain, but it complicated my anger, made it harder to hold on to the narrative that she'd chosen her own safety over my well-being without cost to herself. I called her for the first time since the wedding. She answered immediately, breathless. "Chloe?" "Yeah," I said. "I got your journal." There was a long silence. Then Vanessa's voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for reading it. I wasn't sure you would." "I need to see you," I said. "In person. We need to talk." "Okay. When?" "Tomorrow. Meet me at Miller Lake, where you supposedly died. I'll be there at noon." Vanessa agreed and hung up. I spent the rest of the day preparing myself mentally, thinking about what I wanted to say, what I needed to know. Kira offered to come with me for support, but I declined. This was something I needed to do alone. Miller Lake was 40 minutes outside the city, a small body of water surrounded by pine trees. I arrived early and sat on a bench near the boat launch, looking at the water where Vanessa's car had supposedly been found. The FBI had staged it well. Her car really had gone into the lake, though she hadn't been in it. A controlled crash in the dead of night, everything arranged to look like a tragic accident. Vanessa arrived exactly at noon, walking across the parking lot slowly like she was approaching something dangerous. She sat down next to me on the bench, maintaining a careful distance. We were silent for several minutes, just watching the water. "You picked this spot deliberately," Vanessa said finally, "to remind me of what I put you through." "Partly," I said, "but also because I needed to see it. Needed to understand how you could stage your death in this specific way, knowing how it would destroy me." "The FBI chose the location," Vanessa said quietly. "They said a drowning would be believable, hard to verify, would discourage further investigation. I told them about how our grandmother had drowned when we were 12, how terrified you'd been of water ever since. They said that would make it more convincing, that your fear would make people believe I'd been afraid too, that an accident could happen. So they used my trauma as a tool to make your death more believable," I said. "Yes." Vanessa's voice broke. "I'm sorry. I should have refused. Should have insisted on a different method. But I was so scared, Chloe. I was 23 years old and people were trying to kill me, and I just wanted to disappear. I didn't think about long-term consequences. I only thought about surviving." I pulled out the journal she'd sent me. I read this. All of it. "And I need to ask you something." "Go ahead. When you wrote about seeing me at your funeral, about watching me collapse, did you feel anything? Or had you already compartmentalized so much that you could watch me suffer without it breaking you?" Vanessa turned to look at me, tears already streaming down her face. "It broke me. Every day since has broken me. I see your face that day in my nightmares. I hear your voice from the eulogy you gave. You said I was your other half, that losing me was like losing a limb, that you'd never feel whole again, and you were right. I watched the video online later. I listened to you say those words while I was alive and safe and nowhere near you. That's something I'll carry forever." We sat with that confession between us. Then I asked the harder question. "The last time we talked before you disappeared, that fight about the car, was it really about the car? Or were you already planning to leave and pushing me away was easier?" Vanessa was quiet for a long time. "Both," she admitted. I'd already talked to the FBI. I already knew I was leaving in less than a week, and I couldn't handle being close to you knowing I was about to rip your world apart. So yes, I picked a fight. I made it easier to leave by making sure you were angry at me. That way, when you heard I was dead, at least you'd have some distance. That's so fucked up, I said. The manipulation, the calculated choice to end on bad terms. You took away my ability to have a real goodbye. I know, Vanessa said. I know, and I've regretted it every single day. If I could go back, I'd do it differently. I'd tell you the truth. I'd give you the choice of knowing, even if it put you in danger. Because the FBI was wrong. You deserve to know. You deserve to make your own decision about the risk. You're right, I said. I did deserve that. And the fact that you and Mom and Dad all decided I couldn't handle the truth tells me exactly what you thought of me. That I was weak. That I was someone who needed to be protected from hard truths instead of trusted with them. That's not what we thought, Vanessa said desperately. We thought you were strong. Too strong. We knew if we told you, you'd try to help. You'd put yourself in danger because you wouldn't be able to just stand by while I disappeared. You've always been like that, Chloe. You've always put the people you love before yourself. That's what scared us. So you took my choice away to protect me from my own compassion, I said. Do you understand how insulting that is? How demeaning? Vanessa nodded, crying harder now. I do. I understand. And I don't know how to fix it. I don't know if you can fix it, I said. But I need you to understand something. The Chloe you knew 8 years ago is gone. The person I've become since then is shaped by grief and loss and the hard work of learning to exist without you. I had to rebuild myself from nothing. Had to figure out who I was when I wasn't part of a matched set. That person is different from who I would have been if you'd told me the truth. And I don't know if that's better or worse, but it's real. And you can't have the old me back. That version died with you. I don't want the old you back, Vanessa said. I want to know the person you are now. I want to build a relationship with this version of my sister. If you'll let me. I don't know if I can, I said honestly. Every time I look at you, I see 8 years of pain. I see the funeral. I see the grief counseling. I see the panic attacks and the depression and the slow crawl back to functionality. I see everything your choice cost me. And I don't know how to separate the sister I loved from the person who caused all that damage, even if you didn't mean to. Give me time to try, Vanessa said. Give me a chance to show you that I'm worth forgiving, that we can build something new even if we can't get back what we lost. I thought about it, about the journal she'd kept, about the suffering she'd endured in isolation, about the choice she'd made at 23 that had haunted her for 8 years, about the fact that we were both victims of the same situation, just in different ways. Okay, I said finally, we can try, but it has to be on my terms. Slow, careful, with boundaries that I set and you respect. No pushing, no guilt trips, no expectations that we'll ever be what we were before. Vanessa nodded eagerly. Whatever you need, however long it takes, I'll wait. We sat together on the bench for another hour, not saying much, just existing in the same space. It wasn't comfortable. It wasn't the easy closeness we'd had as children, but it was a start. Over the next several months, Vanessa and I met regularly. Coffee shops, neutral locations, never our parents' house, which I still wasn't ready to visit. We talked about our separate lives, the different people we'd become. She told me about witness protection, about the small town in Montana where she'd lived under an assumed name, working as a waitress and taking online classes, about the isolation and fear that had defined her existence, about watching my life from a distance and feeling powerless to be part of it. I told her about the aftermath of her death, about the first year when I'd barely functioned, about dropping out of grad school because I couldn't focus, about the slow process of rebuilding, about eventually going back to school, getting my degree in social work, about choosing a career helping people process trauma because I'd become intimately familiar with it, about meeting Derek and thinking he was safe and stable, when really he was just emotionally unavailable in ways that matched my own shutdown. Vanessa cried when I told her about the first anniversary of her death, about how I'd spent it alone in my apartment with sleeping pills and a bottle of wine, seriously considering whether I wanted to keep existing in a world without her, about how I'd called a suicide hotline instead, and spent 3 hours talking to a stranger who convinced me to check myself into a psychiatric facility, about the week I'd spent there, finally getting proper treatment for the depression that had been consuming me. I didn't know, Vanessa said. I saw your social media and it looked like you were doing okay. You were posting pictures with friends, going to events. I thought you were coping. I was performing, I said. I got very good at looking functional while falling apart internally. Nobody knew how bad it really was except my therapist. That's a skill I learned from growing up in our family. How to hide the truth to keep everyone else comfortable. Vanessa flinched at that. Our parents did that too, she said. Hid the truth about everything difficult. Made us believe we had a perfect family, when really we were just good at maintaining appearances. I never thought about how that would shape us. It shaped everything, I said. It's why you were able to disappear without telling me. It's why I was able to grieve publicly while dying privately. It's why Mom and Dad could attend your funeral knowing it was fake. We all learned the same skills of compartmentalization and performance. We just used them in different ways. Gradually, painfully, we started to rebuild something that resembled a relationship. It wasn't what we'd had before. Would never be that again. But it was real in a way our childhood relationship had never been. Built on honesty instead of assumption. On choice instead of obligation. 6 months after our reunion, I finally agreed to have dinner with our parents. Vanessa came too. A united front. We met at a restaurant, neutral territory where a scene would be socially unacceptable. The dinner was awkward and tense, everyone careful with their words. My father tried to explain the decision they'd made, the impossible position they'd been in. My mother cried and apologized repeatedly. I listened without interrupting, then I told them what I needed to move forward. I need you to acknowledge that you were wrong, I said. Not wrong to protect Vanessa, not wrong to help her go into witness protection, but wrong to lie to me, wrong to fake the death instead of finding another way. Wrong to let me suffer for 8 years without giving me the truth. My father started to argue, started to say they'd done what they thought was best. I cut him off. I don't care what you thought was best, I said. I care that you made a choice that destroyed me and you've spent 6 months trying to justify it instead of genuinely apologizing for the harm you caused. Until you can do that, we don't have a relationship, just proximity and obligation. My mother reached across the table. We're sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. We made the wrong choice and we can't take it back. We can only hope that someday you'll be able to forgive us. That's a start, I said. But forgiveness isn't something I can promise. It might happen, or it might not. But I need you to accept that and not pressure me to absolve you to make yourselves feel better. My father nodded slowly. That's fair. That's more than fair. We left that dinner without resolution, but with clearer boundaries. My parents understood they'd damaged our relationship possibly beyond repair. They'd have to live with that consequence, just as I had to live with the consequence of their choices. A year after the wedding that never happened, I ran into Derek at a coffee shop. It was awkward, but not painful. He was dating someone new, seemed happy. He asked how I was doing, mentioned he'd heard through mutual friends that my sister was alive. I confirmed it, gave him the abbreviated version of events. He shook his head. I can't imagine going through that. I'm sorry I wasn't more understanding at the time. You were going through your own crisis, I said. The wedding falling apart affected you too. Still, Derek said. I should have been more concerned about you than about the guests and the logistics. That was selfish. I appreciate you saying that, I said. For what it's worth, I think we would have been a disaster if we'd actually gotten married. We wanted different things and were too afraid to admit it. Derek laughed. Yeah, probably. But I hope you find what you're actually looking for. I hope you do too, I said. After Derek left, I sat in the coffee shop and thought about what I was actually looking for. I'd spent so much of my life trying to fill the void Vanessa had left, trying to be enough for both of us, that I'd never figured out what I wanted independent of that loss. Now, with Vanessa back but our relationship fundamentally changed, I had the space to figure it out. I started taking art classes, something I'd loved as a child but abandoned in college to pursue something more practical. I traveled alone for the first time, took a 3-week trip through Europe, proved to myself I could exist independently. I made new friends who didn't know my history, who knew me only as the person I was now. I dated casually, nothing serious, just learning what I actually wanted in a partner, instead of settling for someone who seemed safe. I went back to therapy and worked through not just the grief of Vanessa's supposed death, but the grief of our childhood, the patterns of dysfunction in our family, the ways I'd been shaped by trauma I hadn't recognized as trauma. 2 years after the aborted wedding, Vanessa called me with news. She was getting married, to someone she'd met in Montana during witness protection, a man who knew her full story and loved her anyway. She asked if I'd come to the wedding, if I'd be willing to be her maid of honor. I thought about it for a long time before answering. Can I ask you something first? Of course. Why now? Why are you ready for marriage when 2 years ago you were just coming out of hiding? Vanessa was quiet for a moment. Because I've done the work. The therapy, the processing, the rebuilding. And because Thomas, my fiancé, he understands that I'm still healing. He doesn't need me to be perfect or fully recovered. He just needs me to be honest. And I can do that now. I'd like to come, I said. I can't promise I'll be your maid of honor. That feels like a role that requires a closeness we're still working toward. But I'll be there. I'll support you. That's enough, Vanessa said. That's more than enough. Vanessa's wedding was small, intimate, nothing like the production my wedding was supposed to be. 20 people in a garden in Montana, simple and genuine. I watched her marry Thomas, saw the way he looked at her with full knowledge of who she was and what she'd been through, saw her looking back with the same honesty and vulnerability. It was what I'd thought I had with Derek, but never really did. At the reception, our parents approached me together. They'd been respectful of my boundaries over the past 2 years, had stopped pushing for reconciliation, and started doing the work of understanding what they'd done wrong. My father spoke first. Chloe, I want you to know that I've been in therapy myself, working through the choices I made, the ways I prioritized protection over trust. My therapist helped me understand that I was recreating patterns from my own childhood, where my father controlled everything through information and fear. I did the same thing to you and Vanessa, and I'm sorry, It's taken me this long to really understand the depth of that harm. My mother added, I've been working on myself too, trying to understand why I went along with the deception even when I felt it was wrong. I realized I've spent most of my life avoiding conflict, going along with what seemed easiest rather than fighting for what was right. That pattern hurt both of my daughters, and I'm working to change it. I appreciated them saying it, but more than that, I appreciated that they'd done the work first, instead of expecting me to forgive them without change. Thank you, I said. That means a lot. It doesn't erase what happened, but it matters that you're trying to understand and grow. Can I hug you? My mother asked tentatively. I thought about it, then nodded. She embraced me carefully, like I might break. I hugged her back, feeling something in my chest that had been locked tight for 2 years start to loosen. After the wedding, Vanessa and I walked together away from the reception, ending up at a small lake that reminded me painfully of Miller Lake. We sat on the dock, our feet dangling over the water. This is where I came to think, Vanessa said, during witness protection. When I felt most alone, I'd come here and imagine you were with me. I'd pretend we were kids again, before everything got complicated. I came to Miller Lake too, I said, after you supposedly died. I'd sit there and talk to you like you could hear me, tell you about my day, ask for advice. It was the closest I could get to having you back. We were both talking to ghosts, Vanessa said, both grieving people who weren't really gone. You were grieving me, and I was grieving the relationship we'd had, the sister you were before I left. Yeah, I said. I guess we were. Vanessa turned to look at me. Do you think we'll ever get past it? Past the grief and the betrayal and the distance? I don't know, I said honestly. Some things you don't get past. You just learn to carry them differently. But I think we can build something new. Not the same as what we had, but maybe something that's ours now instead of being about who we used to be. That night, as I flew back home, I thought about the past 2 years, about the person I'd become through the process of losing and finding my sister. I'd learned that love could coexist with anger, that forgiveness didn't require forgetting, that family was both a gift and a wound that never fully healed. I'd learned that I was stronger than I'd thought, capable of surviving betrayals I'd believed would destroy me. And I'd learned that identity wasn't fixed, that the person I was at 31 didn't have to be defined by the grief of 23-year-old me. 3 years after the wedding that never happened, I met someone. A woman named Diana who worked as a photographer, who'd survived her own trauma and understood what it meant to rebuild yourself from wreckage. We dated for a year before deciding to get married, and this time, I knew with certainty it was right. This time, I wasn't performing or settling. This time, I was choosing from a place of wholeness instead of lack. I asked Vanessa to be my maid of honor, and she cried when she accepted. Our parents came to the wedding, behaving appropriately, respecting boundaries. Derek sent a card wishing me well. Kira stood with me as I married Diana in a small ceremony that was everything my first almost wedding wasn't. Genuine, intimate, real. As I said my vows, I caught Vanessa's eye. She smiled at me, and for the first time in years, I smiled back without reservation. We'd never be what we were before her disappearance. That relationship died the day she drove her car into Miller Lake. Or rather, the day the FBI drove it there for her. But we'd built something new in its place. Something that acknowledged the damage while refusing to be defined entirely by it. After the ceremony, Vanessa pulled me aside. She handed me an envelope. I wanted to give you this, she said. I wrote it the day before my wedding to Thomas, but I wasn't ready to share it then. I am now. Inside was a letter, handwritten on the same type of paper as the journal she'd kept during witness protection. It read, Chloe, I've spent years trying to find words that would make this right, that would undo the harm I caused, that would give us back what we lost. I've finally accepted that those words don't exist. What I did to you can't be undone or explained away or forgiven through any single conversation or gesture. You survived something that should have destroyed you, and you did it without the support you deserved to have. You rebuilt yourself in ways that I'll never fully comprehend because I wasn't there to witness it. All I can offer now is this. I see you. I see the person you've become, the strength you've developed, the life you've built despite everything. I see you choosing love again after I taught you that people you love will disappear. I see you trusting again after I proved that even the closest bonds can be broken. I see you thriving in ways that have nothing to do with me or our shared past. And I'm in awe of you. Thank you for giving me the chance to know this version of my sister. Thank you for not giving up on the possibility of us, even when you had every reason to. Thank you for your anger, your honesty, your refusal to let me off easy. You taught me that real love requires accountability, that relationships built on truth are worth more than those built on protection from truth. I love you. I've always loved you. But now I love you with full knowledge of what that love costs and what it requires. And I promise to never again put my idea of what's best for you above your right to know and choose for yourself. Your sister, Vanessa. I folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. Thank you, I said. This means a lot. Vanessa nodded. I know I can't undo the past, but I can commit to a different future. That's all any of us can do, I said. Commit to being better than we were, to learning from our mistakes, to choosing honesty even when it's harder. We stood together at my wedding, identical twins who'd lived parallel lives until trauma tore us apart, And years of painful work brought us back together. Different now. Scarred. But here. Both of us alive and choosing each other with full knowledge of what that choice meant and what it cost. Later that night, Diana found me standing alone on the balcony of our venue, looking at the stars. She wrapped her arms around me from behind. "You okay?" "I'm good," I said. "Really good, actually. Good enough to tell me what you were thinking about just now?" I turned to face her. I was thinking about the difference between the person I was 3 years ago and the person I am now. How much I've changed. How much I've grown. How grateful I am that the wedding that didn't happen, because it gave me space to figure out what I actually wanted. Diana smiled. "And what do you actually want?" "This," I said. "You. A relationship built on honesty. A family I'm choosing instead of one I'm obligated to. A life that's mine instead of one shaped by other people's decisions about what's best for me." She kissed me. "I love you," she said. "I love you too," I said. And I meant it in a way I'd never meant it before, with full knowledge of what love required and what it cost and what it could survive. The wedding ended, and Diana and I went home to start our life together. Behind us, we left my family. Complicated, damaged, but trying. Vanessa and Thomas building their own life while staying connected to mine. My parents, doing the work to understand their failures and grow past them. And the ghost of who I'd been at 23, the person who'd stood at her sister's grave and believed love meant never letting go, even of the dead. I'd learned that love also meant knowing when to let go of who people used to be so you could meet who they'd become. It meant holding space for anger alongside affection, for distance alongside connection. It meant accepting that some betrayals don't get fixed, just integrated into the story of who you are and how you survived. 8 years after Vanessa's death and 3 years after her resurrection, I'd finally figured out how to live in the space between those two impossible truths, to be both the person who'd lost everything and the person who'd found a way forward anyway. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.